All right guys, I am here with the brand new Celestial Flash by Paul C. Buff. We're gonna be doing a photo shoot with our best model, Mr. David Strauss. We're gonna try to make him look really cool, and we're gonna see if we can light him with just one flash. All right, so here it is, the all new Celestial Flash from Paul C. Buff for all intensive purposes. This is kind of the replacement for the Einstein. It's just ever so slightly less powerful, but what you gain is the battery, and now you have an LED light and a ton of new features, so let's talk about it. So this is a 500 watt per second strobe, and I can't really explain why, but after watching a video on Paul C. Buff's website, they go through and compare this to the Godox 8600 and 400, and basically this is more powerful or equally as powerful as many other flashes that are claiming to be 500 watt per second or more. So definitely check out that video in the description below if you want to see how the light output compares to other strobes out there. Next, let's talk about the new modes that this flash can do. It can do 4 different modes. The first one is going to be TTL, which is kind of like your auto mode. Then you have high-speed sync mode, which is going to allow you to increase your shutter speed so that you can still shoot wide open when it's really bright outside and incorporate your flash. Then we have action mode, which is going to increase the flash duration so that anything moving in your scene really quickly will be frozen perfectly with flash. And finally, we have color mode, which is going to prioritize the color coming out of the flash tube. As mentioned, another huge upgrade is the Celestial now has a 160 watt equivalent LED light. So unlike some of the previous strobes from Paul C. Buff, you're not gonna have that really hot modeling lamp. The Alien B800 that I used to have, I would melt gels and even light modifiers because it just got so insanely hot. Now you have a nice LED light which doesn't give off any heat whatsoever. Perhaps the most interesting new feature of this light is it has 12 stops of power. So I recently took a picture of this compared to my ProPhoto B10X. And as you can see at full power on both strobes, this one is just a little bit more powerful by maybe a stop. And when I set both of these strobes to their lowest power, the Celestial had even lower output, which makes it really handy when you're trying to light something in, say, a low light situation where you might bump up your ISO. I've been saying this for years. I wish flash manufacturers would allow their flashes to go even lower so that if you're shooting in low light situations like a restaurant or a nightclub, or you're out in the city streets and you're trying to expose for the ambient light by bumping up your ISO, in many cases your strobe is just too powerful. For years, I used to carry one of these and a little speed light, but trying to fit light modifiers on both of those is a pain. Now you have an all-in-one solution where you can attach all your light modifiers, fire your strobe at full power or 12 stops down. That's gonna be really, really convenient, and that's the technique we're going to be using today in the studio. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and just move our flash out of the scene so that it's not being affected at all. And I wanna just dial in a correct exposure for this scene. So the first setting I wanna set is going to be my shutter speed. I wanna drag the shutter as long as possible before it starts introducing motion blur by me shaking the camera. For me, that's gonna be about 1/100th of a second. I'm also gonna open my aperture to 2.8, which is the widest that this lens goes. The idea is I wanna really blur the background, especially if I was shooting outside or downtown. I wanna get that really nice bokeh look. So 2.8, 1/100. And then the last setting I really need to do is change my ISO. And you know, typically in the studio, I might be shooting at ISO 200, ISO 400. For this shot, I'm gonna set my ISO to 1/250, which is going to be extremely high for using strobes, but hopefully by setting our Celestial strobe all the way down, I can balance the natural ambient light in here along with the flash. To make this set look kind of interesting, I've turned on this production light that we have here. It's got these barn doors and it looks like a studio light or something. But because this light isn't flash, I need to drag the shutter to really make sure that it captures the way that I want. So let's go ahead and take a test shot of David here. I'm gonna frame up something that I might take. And so as you can see here, David's pretty dark, but we have some really interesting light hitting our canvas backdrops, and then we have this production light kind of creating the mood by backlighting him. So now that we have the ambient light in our studio looking good, I have these really crazy settings that are allowing the low ambient light to burn onto my sensor. Let's go ahead and introduce the strobe light. Now recently, Paul C. Buff just released their brand new wireless flash trigger, the Hub. These come in different models depending if you shoot Nikon or Canon. And you're definitely gonna wanna get this if you buy the Celestial, because this is the only way that you can access the high-speed sync mode or TTL. You can also do some interesting things if you connect your hub to your cell phone through Bluetooth. You can update the firmware. You can save and recall different lighting setups. So if there's something that you do over and over in your studio, you can just load that and all of the strobes will be set to those power settings. And you can control all the power settings and modeling lamps straight from your iPhone. Right here I have the 24-inch collapsible beauty dish, and then I've used a little diffusion panel right here so that the flash tube illuminates the entire thing. I'm gonna place this behind David just a little bit, and the idea is to illuminate the side of his face that's not as predominant in the frame. Let's go ahead and take a test shot and see how this looks. Now that shot is a little too bright, so I'm gonna go to my Palsy Buff app here on my phone. One thing that I love about this app is you can control everything straight from your phone, so if I wanna turn the modeling lamp up, I could easily dial it in perfectly with the app. I actually find that in many cases the app is a little bit more convenient and a little easier to use than actually walking over to the flash unit. So you're definitely gonna wanna have the app installed on your phone if you wanna make really fine-tuned adjustments. Now I have the flash set to -9. I'm gonna drop it 2 stops to -11. And what's really great about this flash is, I mean, -11, that's an incredibly low amount of power. I think now if I take a test shot, this is gonna be the perfect balance for the ambient settings that we dialed in earlier. And now as you can see, this looks perfectly balanced. So with any good photo shoot, once I get the lighting set up and I have the overall tone of the image designed, I'm now just gonna play around with the model, move the camera a little bit, find the perfect frame, and then just take a ton of images so that I get that perfect expression, the perfect composition, and the perfect lighting. Perhaps the coolest thing you can do with the Celestial is you can change the color of your strobe with these gel packs that connect with magnets. Not only do these prevent any daylight strobe from leaking out from the side, but it also is going to keep you from melting your gels, and you never have to cut huge gels to light up a whole modifier. You're going to be gelling the source itself, which makes it really convenient for things like beauty dishes and large softboxes. Now, one cool thing that I've done in this studio is I've added these LED lights that are RGB. So I can actually go in here, I don't know if this will show up on camera, but I can change the color of this entire set. I can use, blue lights, we can go down to green, go down to something red. And the beauty of this is this kind of acts as the fill light. And now with this new setup, we can add these different gels and create a completely different color scheme quickly and easily. So let's talk about the big elephant in the room. Let's talk about price. If you want to get the Celestial, it's going to cost you $649. Of course, you're also going to need the hub. You're gonna need one of these triggers to be able to fire it. This is $200. So you're really looking at $849 to get this kit. Now, if we look at the comparable strobe, the ProPhoto B10X Plus that I own, and get their trigger system, the Connect Pro, this costs $2,800.
$2,800.
So this is nowhere near even in the same ballpark. The comparable Elinchrom ELC 500, it is running $1,200 for a trigger and a flash. And the most comparable Godox flash is going to be the AD600. If you have to buy that with its trigger, it runs $968, although for some weird, strange reason, if you buy the Canon system on B&H's website right now, it is showing up for $700. So if you're a Canon shooter, you might want to take advantage of that deal because that might be gone really soon. So if you're a photographer just getting into flash, and let's say you want to get a 3-light setup for about $2,000, the Celestial is really going to be the only option. This is maybe like $2,100 to get the trigger and 3 of these flashes. If you want to get 3 strobes from any of these other systems, it's going to be significantly more money. There is one major complaint that I have to address, and that has to deal with the hub flash trigger. This thing is $200, and honestly, I feel like it doesn't really do a whole lot. You can't easily control these strobes unless you pair it with your phone, and then if you pair it with your phone, it opens up all these options, but you're having to connect with your phone all the time. I don't personally like that. If I compare, say, my ProPhoto trigger, this thing's $400, which is insane, but if you look at the Godox or the Elinchrom trigger, all 3 of these have a much larger LCD screen, and they show you 3, 4, 5 different flashes. I can control the power and the modeling lamps right here. I don't need a phone. Some of these do connect to a phone as well, but for me, I kind of wish they would update the hub to do something more like what the ProPhoto trigger does. Maybe this isn't a big deal for a lot of people, but to me, this seems like the weakest link. I've actually been watching some videos on YouTube, And many people are using the Fusion TLC Raven trigger. I will put a link in the description to the review that we did on this. It's kind of an interesting wireless trigger. This thing's 430 bucks, so it's the most expensive of all of them. But what's unique about this trigger is it can fire Palsy Buff, Pro Photo, it can do Pocket Wizards, and it can do Godox all in one unit, and I think it can even do multiple brands mixed together. You get 4 different groups, and this thing does a lot of really advanced triggering. So I don't know, this might be an option for you. One thing that I do like that they've incorporated in the hub is I do like this hot shoe. If you're a wedding photographer, many cases I put this on my camera, I still want a bounce flash on me. It kind of drives me crazy that these other remotes have gotten rid of the hot shoes, they've gotten rid of the PC ports, they've kind of dumbed these down. I find myself in situations every now and then where I still need to connect something with a PC cable, a wired cable, or if I like to trigger my camera, it's nice to have the trigger on your strobe, be able to fire the camera. None of these really do all of it, but at least with the hub, they are keeping some of those connections on the trigger itself. So there you go, the brand new Palsy Buff Celestial Flash System. I really enjoyed this shoot. I hope David got a pretty cool, interesting image that maybe he can use. If you guys enjoyed this kind of content, make sure you subscribe to our channel below. Last year we were trying to hit 1 million subscribers, and unfortunately we fell just a little short of that. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell. If you guys want to check out our written content, head over to fstoppers.com. And if you want to learn from some of the best photographers in the world, head over to fstoppers.com/store where you can check out our full-length tutorials.